Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about my custom Z palette, which is this guy right here. So this is my go-to eyeshadow palette that I customized using single eyeshadows. And I talked about this in my ride or die makeup tag video. And if you haven't seen that, I'll link it below for you guys. But basically in that video, I talked about my favorite makeup products from each category, and this is what I chose from my eyeshadow palette, which is kind of cheating, but these are really my go-to shadows. I use this palette basically every single day on my eyes, and I asked you guys in that video if you wanted to see kind of a video of a breakdown of what each of one of these eyeshadows in here are, and what the colors are, and what the name is, and what the brand is, and some swatches. And it was the most highly requested video I have ever gotten. I could not believe how many of you commented on that video asking to see a video about this palette. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. So the eyeshadows in here are, the majority of them are Makeup Geek. I love Makeup Geek shadows. They're really affordable. They're really pigmented. They're really creamy, blendable, and buttery. And they're amazing quality, especially for the price, but they're amazing quality in general. And then I also have quite a few single eyeshadows by Anastasia Beverly Hills, which are a little bit more pricey, but also incredible formula. And then I also have a few shadows by Morphe, which I don't like quite as much as the Anastasia and the Makeup Geek, but they are very affordable, and a couple of my favorite shadows are by Morphe. I will say the only really complaint that I have with the Morphe eyeshadows, the single ones, is that I find that they break really easily. Like if I drop this Z palette, I'm pretty much bound to break my Morphe shadows. My other ones don't tend to break as easily. I mean, some of them have because I've dropped this palette a million times. I carry it with me everywhere. I bring it with me every time I travel. So I have kind of changed up, you know, I'll switch out the eyeshadows in this palette from time to time. When I get new ones, I'll kind of pop them in here and swap some out. But I feel like now I've gotten to a place with this palette where I'm so happy with it. I feel like this is my life right here. This is my dream eyeshadow palette. Everything in here is like all that I need for my everyday look. So if you can't tell, I'm super into warm tones, I'm super into neutrals, and I'm super into matte eyeshadows. So I'm going to be going through every one of these colors, giving you the name of it, the brand of it, a little description of the color, and swatches, of course. So let's go ahead and get into this video. So the first eyeshadow in my go-to palette is Anastasia Beverly Hills single eyeshadow in the shade Birkin. And this is basically just a really pretty matte light brown with kind of like a dusty rose sort of undertone to it. It makes a really beautiful transition shade, especially when you're working with more dusty tones or more pinks or more cool tone or kind of mauves or colors in that family, because it definitely has kind of a browny, pinky sort of undertone to it. So here it is swatched on my arm. As you can see, it's just a nice light brown with a pinky, rosy kind of undertone to it, very neutral, really great for a transition shade. Next up is Makeup Geek's Barcelona Beach eyeshadow, which is just a very light, cool toned brown. And I also love to use this one as a transition shade when I'm doing more cool tone looks or working with more grays or blacks. This is the shade that I will use in my upper crease with a fluffy brush as my transition shade. Really beautiful color, really pretty pigment. Let's do a swatch of it for you guys. So there it is, swatched on my arm right here. As you can see, it has a lot more of a gray undertone than the Birkin shade. And this will actually make a really good contour shade for those of you with light, fair to medium light skin tone. You can definitely use Barcelona Beach to contour because it's definitely got really gray undertones to it. The next shade in the palette is by Morphe, and this one, it just says 62 on the back, but I believe the official name for this one is Hazelnut. So this one has a little bit more warmth to it than the Barcelona Beach, but it definitely still is a more neutral eyeshadow. Again, another great transition shade if you're gonna go for more neutral looks. It doesn't have too much warmth in it, it doesn't have too much gray in it, it's just like a perfect neutral brown shade. So there is Hazelnut, or number 62 by Morphe, swatched on my arm. As you can see, not quite as much gray to it as the Barcelona Beach, and it has a lot less pink in it than both of these shades right here, and just more brown and a little bit more warmth to it. Next up is Makeup Geek Latte. This is another great transition shade. Pretty much a lot of these are going to be transition shades, so I apologize in advance for the number of times I'm going to say that. But this one also has a little bit more warmth to it than the previous shades, but it also has a little bit more pinky undertones to it. So here it is, swatched on my arm right here. I really didn't do a good job of that, so I hope you can see, but it's this one here on the bottom. As you can see, a little bit more warmth than all of these, but it still kind of has those pinky undertones that the rest of these shades also do have. Next up is Anastasia Beverly Hills Fawn, another great neutral transition color that I love to use in my crease. And this one does have a little bit more of a yellow kind of undertone to it than the rest of them. So if I'm working kind of more with golds or yellowy tones in my eyes, I love to use this one as a transition shade. So here that is swatched on my arm, and it's actually a lot more similar to Latte than I thought it would be. When they're swatched, they look really, really similar, but this one just has a teeny weeny bit more warmth to it and looks a little bit deeper than the Latte, but they actually look really similar, which actually surprises me because they look pretty different in the pan. I mean, at least to me they do, but I guess they are pretty similar. So that one is Fawn by Anastasia. Next up, I've got Makeup Geek's Preppy eyeshadow. And this one is really, really interesting because as you can see in the pan, it looks like it's got like a strong yellow, kind of almost greeny undertone to it. But when I apply it to the eyes, it does come off very cool toned. Like it looks like it has a gray undertone when I apply it to my eyes. So just be careful with this one. Don't expect to get what you see in the pan because it's not like that. With that being said, it is a really, really pretty crease color or transition shade if you are using more yellow toned or cool toned looks. So there is Preppy on the end, swatched to my arm, and as you can see, it does have a lot more of a cool undertone than the rest of these, and it is a lot more kind of yellowy undertoned while still being cool, but remember, it does show up a lot more gray on the eyes. And the last one in the row is Makeup Geek's Mocha, and this one is definitely a staple for me. I think this is like a must-have in your collection kind of eyeshadow. It's just like the perfect neutral kind of mid-tone dark brown, and it's not too warm, it's not too cool, it's got the perfect undertone, it's perfect for deepening up your crease or adding depth to pretty much any look. So there is Mocha on the bottom here, and as you can see, a lot deeper than the rest of the shades up here, but a very perfect neutral brown shade. So this is the entire first row swatched on my arm from left to right. This is Birkin, Makeup Geek Barcelona Beach, Morphe number 62, Makeup Geek Latte, Anastasia Fawn, Makeup Geek Preppy, and Makeup Geek Mocha. Okay, so moving on to the second row. So the second row is also all matte, but these are more purpley mauve shades. The first one is Makeup Geek's Unexpected, and this is just a beautiful pale kind of lilac undertoned purple, and this kind of has a little bit of warmth to it. It's not super cool tone and it's not super warm either. It's just like a nice neutral pale purple shade, and I love to use this as a transition shade when I'm working with blues or when I'm working with purples. If I don't want to have like brown in my crease, I just want everything to be blown out in purple, then I love to just use this. So this is a really, really great shade to use if you're gonna do like a purple smoky eye or a purple cut crease or anything like that. So here I have Makeup Geek Unexpected swatched on my wrist right there. Next up is Anastasia Dusty Rose single eyeshadow, and this one is one of my absolute favorites. I love to do like a mauve smoky eye, and I think this shade is gorgeous either as your transition shade or in the crease. This is just one of my favorite shades ever. It's so gorgeous, and I think it's really, really flattering on green eyes, which I have. So that's why I really, really love, you'll see I have a lot of kind of purpley toned eyeshadows in here, as well as like my neutrals and my browns, because I think they're very, very flattering on green or hazel eyes. So that's why I love them so much, and I have so many of those kind of tones in this palette. So that is Dusty Rose swatched next to Unexpected. As you can see, it has a lot more pink kind of undertones, more mauve, and a lot more warmth to it than the Unexpected shade. Next up is Morphe eyeshadow in the shade 16, and this one is actually basically identical to the Dusty Rose eyeshadow by Anastasia, so I don't really know why I have both of them on my palette, so I'm not going to talk about this much. I'll show you what's swatched next to Dusty Rose, but basically these two shades are identical. As I mentioned before, I do prefer the Anastasia formula, so if you're going to have to choose between the two, I would go with the Anastasia one, but you don't need both of them. So here's the Morphe one swatched next to the Dusty Rose. Like I said, basically identical shades. The next one in the row is Anastasia's Deep Plum eyeshadow, and this one to me is also a staple. It's basically just a really deep dark plum, and I think this one is perfect for like deepening up your outer corner, smoking out your lower lash line. You could even wear this all over the lid and have like a dark purple smoky eye. I think it's just gorgeous, and I think like a deep plum, which is what it's called, deep plum shade is just definitely an essential to have in your collection for sure. So here it is swatched on my arm right here. Definitely, obviously, a lot deeper than all of the shades I've got in that row so far, but just a really pretty, perfect matte deep purple shade. The next shade is Anastasia's Hot Chocolate eyeshadow, and this is also kind of like a deep purpley shadow, but this one has a lot more brown in it than the Deep Plum shade. So the Deep Plum is more of like a matte dark purple, and this one is like a matte deep brown with warm purplish undertones to it. Definitely another staple in your collection. I would say you could choose either or, you don't really need both. They both kind of will serve the same purpose to kind of deepen up the outer corner, smoke out the lower lash line, or deepen up the crease in any kind of look like that. If you prefer more purples, I would go with the Deep Plum, but if you want something just a little bit more brown, Hot Chocolate is a great option. So here's Hot Chocolate swatched on the bottom. As you can see, a lot more brown and a lot more warmth to it than the Deep Plum shade. Next up is Makeup Geek Corrupt eyeshadow, which is just a matte black eyeshadow. And this eyeshadow is honestly so amazing. I love it so much. And this is like, if there's anything you can take away from this, like this is one of like the top 5 shades in this palette that I think everybody needs. Everybody needs a deep matte black shade because it's perfect for if you're doing like a black smoky eye, or for smoking out your lower lash line, or for deepening up your outer corner. It's just so good for so many looks. And honestly, a little of this stuff goes such a long way. I use it all the time and there's barely even a dent in it. It's such an amazing eyeshadow and it is so pigmented. Just wait till you see the swatch. So there it is, swatched on my arm at the bottom. It's such a deep pigmented black, such a good eyeshadow, so pigmented, so bomb. Okay, so I totally realized that I just forgot one in the row, and this is Anastasia's Smoke eyeshadow. And this is very similar to Hot Chocolate, but it's got a lot more of a cool undertone. So it's a deep matte brown with gray undertones to it. Perfect, again, for deepening up any look, deepening up the crease or the outer corner. And this one is especially good if you're working with more of a cool toned look. Okay, so this swatch is like really terrible because I really wanted you guys to see it next to Hot Chocolate, but there wasn't any room since I forgot about it. So I apologize in advance for this hot mess, but right here in the center, that is the Smoke shade. So as you can see, it's got a lot more gray undertone to it than the Hot Chocolate shade. So here is that entire second row. Again, we've got Makeup Geek Unexpected, Anastasia Dusty Rose, Morphe number 16, Anastasia Deep Plum, Anastasia Hot Chocolate, Anastasia Smoke, and Makeup Geek Corrupt. Alright, so my next row is my only row of shimmers. And to be honest, you guys, I hardly ever like wear shimmers on a daily basis. I'm almost always wearing neutral mattes. So when I do venture out and do shimmers, it's kind of like a big deal. But these are my favorite shimmery eyeshadows. I do have another one that I want to talk about, and it's like one of my favorite colors to wear on my lid, but it's broken, so I don't have it with me. But it is a Morphe eyeshadow because it broke, because it's a Morphe eyeshadow, no shade. But it's a really pretty coppery shade, and the only reason it's not in this palette is because it's shattered and disgusting. But I don't remember the name of it or like the number or whatever, but I will link it below. And I did use it in my Thanksgiving makeup tutorial that I did last, oh my gosh, that was almost a year ago, but then I did on last Thanksgiving. So I'll link that tutorial as well for you guys below so you can see what I'm talking about and you can see it in action and you can see the name of the shade, because that is one of my all-time favorite single eyeshadow shimmers. Anyways, so the first one that I'm going to talk about in this row is Makeup Geek Bling eyeshadow. And this one is just like your basic inner corner highlight shade. It's just like a super pale gold shade. So if you have like a deeper skin tone like than me, it probably won't work on you. But it's just a really pretty bright white kind of blinding inner corner highlight. You could also probably use this as to highlight your face if you're very fair. So there we have Bling swatched on my arm. Just like a beautiful vanilla shimmery pale gold shade. Next up is Makeup Geek Shimmer, which is another beautiful inner corner or brow bone highlight shade, but this one's a lot more of a pale pinky shade rather than a gold to it. So I love to use this on my inner corner and on my brow bone when I'm working with more kind of pinky tones on my eyes. So right here we have Shimmer swatched on my arm next to Bling. Next up is Anastasia's Glisten, and this one is a beautiful shimmery pink shade. I think this is just a perfect everyday color to wear on your lid. It makes a perfect bridal shade. You can also use it to highlight your inner corner and brow bone if you have a little bit of more like a medium to deeper skin tone, but it's just so gorgeous. Such a pretty kind of foiled, pinky, shimmery, beautiful shadow. So here is the Glisten shade swatched on my arm. As you can see, it's a lot deeper and it's also got a lot more warmth to it than these two shades over here. All right, so next up is Makeup Geek foiled eyeshadow in the shade Showtime. So this is a different formula than like their regular shimmers, and these ones actually are a little bit pricier than their regular eyeshadow formula. I believe these ones are like $9.99, something like that. So a few dollars extra, but still really affordable. And these ones have incredible pigment and are incredibly shimmery and shiny and beautiful. So this one is called Showtime, and it's a beautiful, beautiful shimmery cranberry shade. I love to wear this like smoked out all over my lid or in your outer corner. I actually did a look with these two colors right here and this one the other day, and it's kind of like an ombre, so starting inner corner, kind of middle, and then the outer corner to this, and that's actually the next tutorial I'm going to film, spoiler alert, but it's really, really beautiful smoked out in my outer corner. So there is Showtime swatched on my arm. Such a pretty kind of brownish, reddish, purple, cranberry shade. Beautiful. These three colors together, gorgeous color palette. I can't wait till you guys see the look that I have coming up for you on these colors. All right, so the next three shimmers I have for you guys are kind of in the more purpley family. So next one is another foiled eyeshadow by Makeup Geek, and this one's like kind of broken and I kind of had to put it back together, so don't mind the condition of this eyeshadow. But this is in the shade Mesmerised, and this is just like a gorgeous dusty shimmery purple shade. Love to wear this on the lid with like a blown out warm crease. So gorgeous on green eyes. Love it so much. And again, these foiled eyeshadows have amazing pigmentation and amazing shine to them. So there is the Mesmerised shade swatched on my arm right here at the bottom. Next up is Makeup Geek Homecoming, and this is one of their original shimmers, so this is not a foiled shade, but it still has a beautiful shimmery to it, and this one is a little bit more bronzy than the one that I just showed you guys. It's got a lot more brown undertones to it, still a slight purple hint to it, but especially when you'll see when I swatch it, it's got a lot more brown and kind of bronzy tones to it than it looks like on the pan. It's beautiful shimmer, beautiful shade to wear all over the lid. So here is Homecoming on the bottom. Beautiful bronzy shade with a slight purple undertone to it. For the last shimmer in the palette and the last one in the row, I've got Makeup Geek's Prom Night. That's funny, Homecoming Prom Night. Anyways, this one's kind of a lot more, I don't know, this might sound really weird, but this one like reminds me of the moon. I don't know why, but it's sort of like grayish, purple, shimmery. Again, another shade to wear on the lids. This one would be so beautiful with like a deep purple in the outer corner, smoked out in the crease and on the lower lash line. And then this one is like a pop of shimmer on the lid. Gorgeous, 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 beautiful shade. I actually don't use this one that often. I don't know why, probably because I hardly ever wear shimmers, but it's such a beautiful color. I need to get more use out of it. All right, so there it is on the bottom there, a lot more gray to it. And it's actually very similar to Mesmerised, but it's got a lot more of a gray undertone and not quite as shimmery since it's not the foiled formula. Okay, so here's the whole third row swatched on my arm. We've got Bling by Makeup Geek, Makeup Geek Shimmer, Makeup Geek foiled eyeshadow Showtime, Makeup Geek foiled eyeshadow in Mesmerised, Makeup Geek Homecoming, and Makeup Geek Prom Night. So this next row right here has got to be one of my absolute favorites in the whole palette. It's all like warm matte browns and like reddish browns and like cranberry shades. These are the shades that I live, breathe, and die for, and I wear it on my eyes almost every single day. So first one is Anastasia Caramel Eyeshadow. I love this shade so much. It's such a beautiful mid-tone warm brown, and this one's got a lot more kind of yellow undertones to it than the rest of like my warmer kind of reddish toned browns in the palette, which is one of the reasons why I love it so much. It's so beautiful and makes a really like perfect transition shade if you have deeper skin tones or medium skin tone, or a really just beautiful crease color on anybody. If you want to do like an all matte eye with this in the crease, love. And here's a swatch of Anastasia Caramel Eyeshadow. So the next eyeshadow I'm going to talk about is probably, I don't want to say for sure because it's a pretty bold claim, but I think I want to say it's my most favorite eyeshadow color ever. And this is Makeup Geek Cocoa Bear. This shade is just, this is me in an eyeshadow. It's a beautiful, warm, reddish, mid-tone to darker brown, and this is everything. I use this shadow all the time. I actually am just barely about to hit pan on it, but I have had this for so long and I use it all the time. It's so freaking pigmented. It's such a beautiful color. I love this color in my crease. This color in your crease with a smoky eye is everything. With a black smoky eye, with a purple smoky eye, with a blue smoky eye. This color is just so good. It makes your eyes look so warm and just sultry. It's beautiful all over the lid. It's beautiful smoked out on the lower lash line. It's beautiful on the outer corner. It's just beautiful. You can wear it in so many different ways. It'll work on so many different skin tones. This will make a beautiful transition shade if you've got a deeper skin tone. Oh, it's to die for. One of my favorite eyeshadows ever. If you don't have this in your collection, please purchase it. This is again one of my top 5. Like, I think you have to have this eyeshadow in your collection. It's stunning. I use it literally all the time, pretty much almost every single day. So here's Cocoa Bear swatched next to Caramel. As you can see, quite a bit deeper and also a lot more red to it. This next shade is very similar to Cocoa Bear. This is the Anastasia single eyeshadow in the shade Sienna. And I'm gonna say that if you have Cocoa Bear, or if you have Sienna, you don't really need the other one because they are so similar. If anything, I will say that Sienna does have a little bit more red in it, whereas Cocoa Bear's got a little bit more of an orangey undertone, but you'll see when I swatch them next to each other in just a second how similar they are. So another great shade, another staple, another must-have, or well, at least one over the other for sure. So this right here is Anastasia Sienna. As you can see, very similar to Cocoa Bear, but a little bit more red toned, and this is a little bit more browny orange than this one right here. The next eyeshadow in the palette is Anastasia Blazing Eyeshadow, and this one is also very similar to Cocoa Bear and Sienna, but this one's got a lot more red in it than the two of those, but it also makes a beautiful kind of transition shade or crease shade, or really any all over kind of shade. So here it is swatched next to Sienna and Cocoa Bear. Like I said, it's got more a reddish kind of pink undertone than the two of them, but very similar. This next one is one of my absolute favorites, and this is the Makeup Geek eyeshadow in the shade Bitten, which is just a gorgeous matte cranberry shade. It's so beautiful. I love to wear this shade all over my lid, in my crease, to deepen up my outer corner. I love to wear this shade smoked out on the lower lash line with kind of like just like neutral kind of browns on the lid and a wing. Oh, it's one of my favorites. It's so beautiful. It's warm, brownish, reddish purple. Such a gorgeous shade. So this is Bitten right here. As you can see, very similar to all of these, but it's got a lot more purpley pinkiness in it than the rest of these, whereas these have more brown to them. Next up is Makeup Geek's Country Girl, another really pretty kind of warm toned brown shade, pretty similar to Bitten, but it's kind of a little bit lighter and a little bit more brown. And this one is actually not a complete matte, but it's not really a shimmer either. It's got like tiny little flecks of shimmer in it, and it's kind of more of a satin shade. So here is the Country Girl swatched on my arm right here. So again, kind of more reddish and more brown than the Bitten shade. Another beautiful shade to wear all over the lid with like some Cocoa Bear in the crease, just for like a warm, smoky eye, beautiful shade. So for the last eyeshadow in this row, I have Makeup Geek's Frappe, which is another beautiful warm brown. This one's a little bit lighter than the rest of the ones that I mentioned so far in this row and makes another beautiful kind of warm brown transition or crease shade. So here's Frappe at the very bottom. Again, a lot lighter than the rest of the shades and more true brown. And you guys, right now, this arm right here, this is like a dream. These shades, this is my life right here. So here's all the shadows in this row. We've got Anastasia Caramel, Makeup Geek Cocoa Bear, Anastasia Sienna, Anastasia Blazing, Makeup Geek Bitten, Makeup Geek Country Girl, and Makeup Geek Frappe. Okay, so we are finally on to the last row in my custom Z palette, which is, this is like my transition shade row. So if you hear me say transition shade a million times in the next couple of minutes, I apologize in advance. So first up in the last row is Makeup Geek's Chickadee eyeshadow. And this is another staple. This is another one that I consider like a must-have eyeshadow, which might surprise some people because it's orange, but don't be afraid to use a shade like this, because a shade like this it can be used in so many different ways. So my favorite way to use this eyeshadow is to add warmth to any look. So if I'm feeling like whatever I'm wearing on my eyes just needs like a little pop of warmth, I'll take this like on a big fluffy brush and just kind of buff it with a very light hand into the crease, and it really helps liven up the look and add so much warmth to it, and it's so beautiful. If you want to see me use this in action, I did use it in my magenta metallic something or other smoky eye that I just posted a few videos ago. And I used this as my transition shade, and it really, really helps tie in the look and add warmth to it and add kind of like a pop of color. So it's not like super bright. If you do want this to be super bright, like on your lid or whatever, you could always go in with a white base underneath and you will have like a bright, intense orange eyeshadow. But if not, it's so beautiful like on the lower lash line to blend something out, or in the upper crease just to add warmth to any look. It's beautiful. One of my favorite eyeshadows, hands down. So here's Chickadee swatched on my wrist, and I did swatch it once with a light hand just so you can see how it would kind of add a light wash of color, and then I swatched it pretty heavily right down here. Next up is Anastasia Orange Soda eyeshadow, and this is one of my absolute favorite transition shades ever. It's just a really, really pale orangey brown shade, and it's just perfect if you have like light to medium skin tones with a warm undertone. This is a perfect transition shade. It's not super dark and it doesn't show up a lot, but it really, really helps blend into the other colors that you're gonna like put on later on your crease or on your lid or whatever. So this is like such a staple in my collection. So here is Orange Soda swatched on my arm, and as you can see, it doesn't show up a lot because it is very, very close to my skin tone, but it's got a lot of warmth and a lot of orange in it. Beautiful transition shade. My next one is Makeup Geek Beaches and Cream, and as you can see, this one is very, very loved. It's been used and abused, and I've hit major pan on this one. This one's very similar to Anastasia Orange Soda. It's just a little bit paler and a little bit more neutral. It's got a little bit less warmth in it. Again, it makes a great transition shade if you are very fair and have like neutral to cool undertones. So here's Beaches and Cream swatched on my arm. Again, kind of hard to see, but as you can see, it's got a little bit more pink in it than the Orange Soda. This would also make a gorgeous like all over lid shade or like base color if you've got like pinky kind of undertones with a light skin tone. Next up is another one of my like all-time favorite must-have staples. I think this is like one of my top 5. One that I'm definitely recommending that you kind of just have to have in your collection, and this is Makeup Geek Peach Smoothie. And this one is very, very similar to Anastasia Orange Soda, which you will see here in a minute when I swatch it, but if anything, it's got just a hint more yellow to it, and it's just a little bit brighter than Orange Soda, and it's also more affordable. And as you can see, I've hit major pan on this one as well. Such a perfect transition shade for my skin tone and for so many skin tones. It's beautiful. It like just gives you the perfect like transition where it just shows up a little bit and helps everything blend in so easily. Just such an amazing color, such a staple, must have in I think everybody's collection. So here is Makeup Geek Peach Smoothie. I know you can barely see that, but nice warm pale shade, and like I said, very similar to Orange Soda, but a little bit kind of brighter and a little bit more yellow, and actually has a little bit more pink to it now that I'm seeing them swatched on the arm together. Alright, so this one is Makeup Geek Creme Brulee, and this is another one of my staples. This is another top 5 must-have eyeshadows. This one is very similar. It's in the same color family to all these ones that I've got on my arm right now, but it's got a lot more brown to it and a lot less orange, but it still has a lot of warmth, and it's also a little bit deeper. Again, it makes a beautiful, beautiful, perfect transition shade. So here's Creme Brulee swatched on the bottom, a lot more brown to it and a lot deeper than the other ones that I've got up here right now. So last but certainly not least, I've got Anastasia's eyeshadow in Burnt Orange. Again, very similar to all of these, but this one's a little bit deeper than the rest of them I just talked about, and this one's got a very warm undertone. So compared to Creme Brulee, it's a little bit warmer and a little bit deeper than that. Again, beautiful, warm transition shade or crease shade if you are more fair. So here is Burnt Orange next to these. Like I said, deeper than Creme Brulee, and it got a little bit more of an orange undertone to it. So here are the swatches of that entire row. We've got Chickadee by Makeup Geek, Anastasia Burnt Orange, Makeup Geek Peaches and Cream, Makeup Geek Peach Smoothie, Makeup Geek Creme Brulee, and Anastasia Burnt Orange eyeshadow. Alright you guys, so that is it. Those are all of my favorite go-to eyeshadows in this palette right here. And remember, you don't have to have all of these eyeshadows. You know, get whatever works for you, what you think will work for your skin tone and for your needs. But I will say, if you have all of these or most of these shadows, it will be really easy for you to follow along with most of my tutorials. I did have somebody message me recently and ask me like, hey, you know, I really love your videos, but it's so hard to keep up with all the palettes and all the products you're using. And she asked if I had any recommendations for any eyeshadow palettes that I thought were really good starters that she needed or would be helpful, or whatever I thought was the best. And I told her, you know, I think the best way to start your eyeshadow collection is honestly with single eyeshadows, because that way you can customize it to get exactly what you need, and you're not having any palettes or colors in there that you think you're not really getting used, and you get exactly your shades. You can mix and match and you can customize them. So I do put these all in the Z palette, by the way, and the Z palette I will leave a link below for. There's like a bunch of places you can get them, but I'll leave a couple links for places that you can get these Z palettes, and they just like magnetize and stick into here. So I really do think that customizing your own Z palette is like the perfect way to get all of your needs met in an eyeshadow palette. And now that I have like all of my favorites in this palette, like I hardly ever pull from my palettes, which is not really the best thing ever because I have so many palettes and I really need to use them. But this, honestly, like if you have a palette customized of your favorite colors, you won't need anything else. And so these are just some of my favorites, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video about my favorite eyeshadows. I hope you found it helpful and got some good ideas of, you know, how to start your single eyeshadow collection. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and please give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Other than that, don't forget you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. All three of those are Z_Sprucey, which I will link below for you guys as always, as well as all of the eyeshadows that I talked about in today's video. So yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye. We're done.